Over 60% of people worldwide believe in an afterlife, with nearly half of them fearing the concept of hell. But what if hell is real, and the consequences of our earthly actions are more severe than we ever imagined? This is not just a story to scare you. It's a wake-up call that could change your life. Today, we are going to cover the story of Dominic Morrow, a person with a near-death experience who gives us a scary look into the afterlife. You won't believe, but he saw preachers who tricked their followers, TV characters who were really demons, and even a child trapped by spiritual lies. Why does this matter to you? Because this problem is closer to home than you might think. Consider the leaders you trust and the decisions you make every day. Dominic's experience shows that no one is safe from spiritual corruption. The video might be disturbing, but at the end, you gain clear insights about why some people end up in hell and find out how to avoid making the same mistakes. Dominic Morrow was a man who grew up in Chicago, Illinois. His life was marked by hardship and crime. His father was killed in Cuba in 1982, leaving Dominic to grow up poor in the projects. He was exposed to Santeria and the New Age movement from his Cuban side of the family, while his African-American side introduced him to the world of money and drugs. These influences led Dominic down a dark path. He thought he had it all: money, girls, and power. But one fateful night changed everything. It was a regular Friday night, and Dominic and his friends were getting ready to hit the clubs in Chicago. They were flashy, had lots of money, and felt invincible. But something felt off to Dominic. He noticed a man who seemed to be following them. At first, he thought he was being paranoid, but the feeling didn't go away. Every time they changed locations, the man was there, watching them. Dominic's friends brushed it off, but he couldn't shake the feeling. Later that night, as they were leaving his building, Dominic saw the man again. This time, the man was sitting on a gate in front of their building. Dominic decided to confront him. As he reached into his pocket for a lighter, everything went dark. He saw a bright green flash, and then nothing. Time seemed to stop. The next thing Dominic knew, he was falling into darkness. And what happened next will literally change his life. But guys, wait a minute. Very few of you have subscribed to the channel. Please take a moment to subscribe to the channel to avoid all these sinful activities. Now, the sensation of falling was terrifying. The darkness was alive, and it felt like it was stripping away all the good inside him. Everything he knew, everything he believed, was being torn away. The fear was beyond anything he had ever experienced. He was falling faster than the speed of light, and the darkness was consuming him. As Dominic fell, he started to hear screams. Millions of people screaming in agony. The sound was deafening. He could understand every single scream, every single cry for help. The heat was unbearable. It wasn't like the heat on earth. It was a heat that burned his very soul. The smell was even worse. It was a foul, sulfuric odor that made him want to vomit. If that smell were released on earth, it would kill everyone instantly. Dominic landed in a place that was beyond comprehension. It was a place of unimaginable suffering and despair. The environment was dark, hot, and filled with the screams of tormented souls. He saw people being tortured in ways that he couldn't even begin to describe. The demons were relentless, and the torture was never-ending. One of the most shocking things Dominic saw was a young girl, no more than 11 years old. She was being tortured by demons who took the form of her favorite TV characters. They had deceived her in life, and now they tormented her in death. It was a horrifying sight, and it made Dominic realize just how deceptive the enemy can be. The preachers Dominic saw were there because they had led their congregations astray. They had taken money, engaged in immoral behavior, and failed to preach the truth. They had watered down the word of God to gain popularity and fill their pews. Their punishment was severe, and the demons took great pleasure in torturing them. The people Dominic saw in hell were not just random souls. They were people who had made choices in life that led them there. They had ignored the warnings, lived for their flesh, and turned away from God. Now, they were paying the ultimate price. As Dominic walked through hell, he saw different compartments for different sins. Each compartment was tailored to the specific sin that the person had committed. For example, the lustful were subjected to endless torture that involved their flesh. Thieves were in a place where they could never take anything without it being taken back from them in a painful way. It was a place of perfect justice, but it was also a place of unimaginable suffering. Dominic learned many lessons from his experience in hell. One of the most important is that we must live our lives with purpose and righteousness. The choices we make on earth determine our eternal fate. It's crucial to seek forgiveness and live according to spiritual principles before it's too late. We must not take our relationship with God for granted. We must make Him the center of our lives, not just an afterthought. Dominic urges everyone to reflect on their lives. Make amends, seek spiritual guidance, and put your faith in a higher power. The doors of salvation are closing, and we must act now. Don't wait until it's too late. When Dominic returned to his body, he felt heavy and cold. It was like wearing wet clothes. He was in a hospital bed, surrounded by nurses who seemed shocked to see him alive. They called for help, and he could hear them shouting medical codes. Dominic was terrified to close his eyes, afraid he would return to hell. It took Dominic weeks to adjust to being back in his body. He felt disgusted, heavy, and out of place. But he was grateful for the chance to change his life. He knew he had been given a second chance, and he wasn't going to waste it. Since his experience, Dominic has dedicated his life to sharing his story and warning others. Hell is real, and it is not a place you want to end up. The suffering is beyond anything you can imagine, and it is eternal. But there is hope. It's never too late to change. Seek forgiveness, live righteously, and make God the center of your life. Dominic saw preachers in hell who were there because they had misled their congregations. These preachers had taken money, engaged in immoral behavior, and failed to preach the truth. They had watered down the word of God to gain popularity and fill their pews. Their punishment in hell was severe, and the demons took great pleasure in torturing them. The sight of these preachers being tormented was one of the most shocking and eye-opening parts of Dominic's experience. It revealed the grave responsibility that spiritual leaders have and the dire consequences of failing to fulfill that responsibility. Dominic saw that these preachers had led double lives. On the outside, they appeared to be righteous leaders, but behind closed doors, they engaged in sinful and corrupt behavior. They took advantage of their positions for personal gain, exploiting their congregations for money and power. They failed to preach the true word of God, instead delivering watered-down messages that were designed to be popular and non-offensive. In hell, these preachers faced the full weight of their sins. The demons tortured them with relentless cruelty, reveling in their suffering. Dominic saw that the preachers' punishments were directly related to their sins. Those who had exploited their congregations for money were subjected to endless torment that involved their material possessions being taken away and used to cause them pain. Those who had engaged in immoral behavior faced tortures that targeted their flesh in the most horrific ways. This part of Dominic's testimony serves as a stark warning to all spiritual leaders. It emphasizes the importance of living a life of integrity and preaching the true word of God. It also highlights the need for congregations to be discerning and hold their leaders accountable. The Bible supports this warning. In James 3 verse 1, it says, "Not many of you should become teachers, my fellow believers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly." This verse underscores the great responsibility that comes with being a spiritual leader and the severe consequences of leading others astray. Dominic's experience with these preachers in hell also serves as a reminder to all believers to examine their own lives. It urges them to seek spiritual guidance, live righteously, and make amends for their sins. It emphasizes the importance of a genuine relationship with God, not just a superficial appearance of righteousness. Reflecting on this part of Dominic's story, viewers are encouraged to take a hard look at their own lives and the spiritual leaders they follow. They are urged to seek out leaders who preach the true word of God and live lives of integrity. They are also reminded of the importance of living according to spiritual principles and seeking forgiveness for their sins. Dominic's testimony is a powerful reminder of the reality of hell and the consequences of our actions. It emphasizes the importance of living a life of purpose and righteousness, making God the center of our lives, and seeking forgiveness before it's too late. In conclusion, Dominic's story is a wake-up call. Have you ever wondered what happens after we die? Imagine waking up in the most terrifying place imaginable. Today, we uncover the shocking reason why some people end up in hell. This is a true story that will leave you speechless.